Welcome, welcome, everyone. I am Jenny Ponzurek. For those of you new to me, my background's in school psychology. I'm almost going to hit my 25th anniversary of being in this field of school psychology. That anniversary is going to hit this fall. For those of you who don't know me, in addition to just being part of this wonderful field, I'm also the founder of the Prepared School Psych community as well as PSW Monthly. And I am joined today by Dr. Amy Miranda, fellow school psychologist. And we wanted to chat today with a couple of tips, we've got some questions from some school psychologists around IEP documents. And again, I know for some of you listening to this, you're already done with all your IEPs. For some of you, you still have a couple more left. So for those of you who still have a couple more left, I want you to just kind of think about these couple of tips. And for those of you who are already done, write down a couple of notes and maybe put this in your file for August when you come on back. Some things to think about here. But one of the things we are talking about is some school psychologists we know are in charge of the social emotional kind of section of the IEP document, where you may be in charge of summarizing present levels. You may be yourself writing goals if there's an area of need. And then for some school psychologists, you are either talking about service minutes or you yourself are the one who's going to be providing that direct service to the student. And sometimes we get some questions around how to do all of these different pieces. Amy and I were just chatting before we hit record here, and she was mentioning not all of us were even trained on all of these things in our university program. And sometimes our district might just assume we know how to do all these things and didn't quite train us on all these pieces either. And sometimes we're just wondering, like, does every single student who need counseling 30 minutes a week? Like every single student, right? So we are going to hit two of these points today. Amy's going to start off and talk about present levels, and then I'm going to give you your second tip about those service minutes. So Amy, talk about those present levels.
Definitely. So, you've done your assessment, you completed it, you wrote a beautiful report. Now, how do you write those present levels? I know for myself, I honestly hit a roadblock in terms of not always knowing what I need to include when I'm writing present levels. Am I taking information from my report? Am I copy and pasting a summary? Do I put something else, my observation, something, who knows? I'm always feeling unsure about that. And I think when I'm in that place of feeling really unsure, I really try to remember the purpose of writing present levels. Like, what's the whole point? And as Jenny mentioned, we're writing these present levels. We're ultimately trying to talk about services, and we've got to get there. We need some goals. So we really need to write present levels in a way that's going to give us information, give us some baseline data to write goals for our students. And so we have to make sure when we're kind of in those murky waters, is the information in our present levels helping us do that? And those are the things I try to remember to navigate that a little bit better.
I did a training recently about this topic, and the other person I was training with brought up exactly what you just said around baseline data for our goal being part of the present level. And it was so amazing, like the look of shock and some other just kind of looks about, like, most of us have never thought about it in that way. Most of the
Yeah.
time we're just, like you said, are we just copying and pasting information directly from our reports? Are we just summarizing the BASC data, right? And that's like another way of thinking about what is that important piece to include there. And
Definitely.
so, really thinking about could someone read the present levels and completely understand where you're going to go with the goals there?
Exactly.
And I think that's, again, I if you still have a couple more IEPs, everyone who's listening to this right now, I want you to look at those. And again, end of the school year might not be the best time for you to change the way you do things. But I think it would be interesting for you to even look at the last IEP you wrote and really think about, could someone read that and really determine, oh, look, there's baseline data for that goal there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, one of the other tips we wanted to talk about too was about service minutes, right? Whether you're talking about service minutes or another team member, this is something that I hear sometimes. Someone on the team is talking about service minutes, like they're trying to fit this kid into like their already completed schedule, right? So I remember a teacher who used to say things like, fourth grader, oh, this kid's a fourth grader. I work with fourth graders for math 4 days a week for 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that may be true. But we want this to sound differently, right? Like it's supposed to be individualized, right? Amy, you hear kind of similar types of things sometimes too at your IEP meetings, right?
Oh, all the time. And, to your point, Jenny, it does need to be individualized. And kind of back to our first point, it should all be coming from our present levels, right? Instead of just like you said, oh, the people are thinking, I have my schedule. That's where they're going to fit. And that could be true, but it's truly all about presentation of the information and making sure we're remembering there's the I in the IEP.
Exactly. Exactly. And again, going back to those of you who provide direct services, when we think about those counseling minutes, I think once a week for 30 minutes is just something that rolls out of our mouth because that's what we just kind of have been told. Like that's how we provide service here. But there's definitely some kids who need more than that. And there may be some kids who need less than that, right? Like every student, again, going back to what you just said, the I in IEP, right? Not every student has the same exact needs. And so I wanted to share a sentence frame here that could be helpful for you, or you might want to share with some of your other team members. In order for this student to reach the agreed upon goal, I think they need this many minutes of this service, right? Because that's what we're talking about here, right? Is how much time do we think this student needs in order to work on this goal? So I'm going to repeat that one more time. In order for this student to reach the agreed upon goal in a year, right? I think they need this many minutes a week, minutes a month, however you guys talk about minutes, right? Of this particular service. And even if that ends up being 4 times a week, 40 minutes for math, it's the presentation of the information. Because I would like to think that if whoever wrote that math goal really thought a student needed more than 4 times a week for 40 minutes, that would come out at the meeting as well, right?
Definitely, definitely. And if what we're talking about is answering some questions for you, or maybe it's making you think about other things that happen, or you have more questions, we have got great news for you because we have an entire summer boot camp session devoted to connecting the dots between those two things, between present levels, goals, and services. So making sure they're all connected. And we are going to really focus on using practical strategies for you as the school psychologist if you're working on those social emotional sections. And we are going to also address the reality and the fact that you're not always in charge of all the other pieces for the whole IEP, right? So how can you work with your other team members, really make that cohesive team if you feel like there are some dots not being connected, that people are not going, from present levels to goals to services. So if that sounds interesting to you or really would answer some questions for you, please head on over to jennyponzerk.com to find all of the details about that session and the information.
Now, summer boot camp registration has been open for a little bit, but if you are still on the fence, one of the other questions that we have received about summer boot camp this summer is whether or not we take purchase order forms. And that answer is yes. If your school district wants to pay for you to be able to participate in summer boot camp, we have that form all ready to go. Back on the website, jennyponzerk.com. If you head over to our summer boot camp page, right next to the registration information, if you want to pay for yourself, is also the document if you have a school district that is willing to pay for you as well. So check out that information. And as always, if you have any questions about summer boot camp, feel free to send us a DM, throw out a question on the website. We have a place for you to, ask questions there too. So we'd love to see you there for summer boot camp. Amy and I are excited about the session that we're putting together for you on this topic. And for all of you who still have a couple more IEPs to go, good luck. Good luck.
You got this.
We'll see you all soon.